Hi guys, it's Chris from Once Upon a Turnbuckle Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me back here on the channel for another edition of Go Figure. Before I hit those credits and we have a look at what I've added to the collection this week, I just want to say, hope you all had a great Easter weekend and also WrestleMania weekend for those of you who also celebrated that this year. Now, if you haven't already done so, just a quick plea to say, please subscribe to the channel. If you like what I'm doing here, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the content that I add from here on in. So let's roll those credits. So it's a bit of a difference here. I'm mobile. I'm just trying out my I bought one of these like selfie stick type things, and I'm trialing it for this video just to see whether this is actually any easier, any more comfortable for me than just standing in front of a tripod with a ring light that I don't use. I can take you around. I can just show you. It's my setup. You've probably seen it in the background a little bit. Let me turn you. Those of you who've been following the channel and Go Figure so far, just a refresher on the Galoob collection there. These tanks, just so you anyone who's wondering, these actually got beetle larvae, and I'm trying my hand at beetle keeping. But there he is from last episode, the Blue Blazer. Still haven't got for him yet. But what have I got for you this week? Well, it's been Easter weekend, but I thought rather than continue to crack open Easter eggs and fill my stomach with chocolate I don't need, I have got some bad boys here to crack into instead. I've got cracking open into some packages that I've been keeping, piling up ready for this video, and starting to fill the collection rather than my stomach. So what I will say off the bat is we haven't made any further progress with the Galoob collection, but what I have been doing over the last week or so is adding a few new, very, very cool items to the Jakks BCA collection, which will be up here somewhere. I need to create a bit of room, but I do need to additions to show you to that. Plus, also, I got a few additions from more of the Jakks lines that I wasn't actually planning on collecting, but my dear old mum, bless her, she thinks even at 41 I'm never too old for her to buy me wrestling figures for my birthday. So it's my birthday, as you saw in the last episode, and this past weekend, over Easter weekend, we went and visited her, and bless her, she'd got me a few figures to add to my collection because she saw I was doing this as well. So I'll be able to show you those, and there's a few in there that I wasn't obviously aiming for because they're not strictly the BCA line, but they're cool ones to have anyway. So without further ado, why don't we head over to the desk so I can crack into these and see what's in them. Okay, what I thought I'd do first is I'll start with what are all the loose ones. They're already, I've got no packages to open. These are the ones that I've already opened. So these are the ones that mostly my mum got me for my birthday. There is one more in there, which I'll start with actually, which is this one here. Jeff Jarrett, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. And this is actually WCW Toy Biz release. The reason I'm showing you this and why I've added this into the collection, it will become apparent probably later in this video, because I've got another one which I was hoping would arrive today in time for this, but it hasn't. So in probably the next video, I'll have another addition to this. This was one that I already had. This is one that I had originally back in the day when I was collecting in my teens. It was one that I acquired in a little job lot when I first started back doing this, and he was actually one that I was gonna use. I was gonna sell to try and raise funds and that, a couple of quid here and there. But I decided to keep him for reasons that will become apparent hopefully as this video goes on. So this is Jeff Jarrett from his WCW days. This is after he went back to WCW, after he lost the IC title to China. I think it was Unforgiven, top of my head, 1999. If I've got the name of the pay-per-view wrong, sorry. but I know which one I mean. It's sort of October that year, I think it was. He dropped the IC title, and then that night he left. He went back to WCW. So it's the same image we had of him when he then at that time when he left the WWF. So he's got the short trunks version, the short shorts version, rather than the singlet, not singlet, the tights and the tassels that we knew him for Double J. I decided to pull this from sale and keep it and actually add him to my collection, because unbeknownst to me, unwittingly, I ended up acquiring a couple of other Jeff Jarrett pieces, which occurred to me. I know I wasn't a massive fan of his in-ring work, but I did love the look of him in figure form, and this was one I did enjoy having back in the day. So it's just simply an addition to my collection that I already kind of had, but wasn't part of the collection officially, but now he is. So he's going to be standing up there. And I quite like the Toy Biz range. Is so hit and miss. Head sculpts wise, I mean, this one's a good one actually in terms of looking like Jeff Jarrett. Some of them were horrible in this line. Looks so cheap, nastily made. But just showed really some of the times of WCW at that point, sort of nearing the end the last couple of years, that just the products they were bringing out just weren't that great. But I do have a soft spot for Jeff Jarrett. So he's one that I've acquired. Now we move on to the ones that I was quite touched when I got these, when I realised what my mum had done. She'd literally hit up one of the charity shop websites, I think it was Oxfam website, and she decided she was going to, just for a laugh really, just get me a few that she could lay her hands on. So I'll take you through these now. These are going to be impromptu additions to my collection. I'm not sure where they'll fit as we go down the road, but this is the first one. And the reason I picked this one first is because this is the one that actually he will fit within the BCA collection that I'm putting together, because he is a Jakks specific BCA release. I didn't have this version of Triple H. I don't know if I'll be able to flash up a picture around about here of the one I did have. It was from the WrestleMania, I swear it's from the WrestleMania 15 line. I can't honestly remember. May have even been WrestleMania 14 line. The earlier versions of Triple H. So this is Triple H after he took over D-Generation X from Shawn Michaels after WrestleMania 14. And eventually we got him in new tights with these really cool Triple H logos on. This was sort of mid-98, mid-98 image we're looking at here. What's interesting about this one, I did a little bit of research before I came on to do this on which line. I wanted to find out which line this belonged to, because there were so many versions of, it's the thing with the Jakks line, they brought out so many variations of the common wrestlers like Steve Austin, Triple H, The Rock. They all had loads. And I hadn't seen this one in the black. Is it black or really, really dark blue, purple? I can't, my colour blindness fails me. The closest line that I could find that this belonged to was the Signature Series 3, which was released in 1999. And although a bit like Steve Austin and Mankind with the Signature Series ones that I had in the beginning, this doesn't have signature on the legs. What I did find, interestingly, is this here. So this said to me it does belong to the Signature Series line. Now this has come from someone who swapped the waistcoat from an Edge figure, or this is an error, and this was actually, they put the wrong waistcoat with the figure in the first place, but he's got Edge's signature on there rather than Triple H. So he's quite a cool collection just for that, really. I'm going to say that that's probably something that happened at the factory, just really because this looks really quite difficult. You can work it out, but this looks really quite difficult to get a waistcoat out from under his hair, which is quite molded quite stiff. So, the effort that would have been involved to take this off and put an Edge one on, I don't know, would you go through the effort? I'm going to say that this is one of those sort of QA reject or QC reject type figures where the wrong one got through. So we've got a Triple H figure with an Edge signature. He's a very cool figure though. Again, that typical soft rubber in the arms with the BCA action, that fantastic. And I was going to need to have a Triple H at some point in my collection, so it's a great time to be able to kick one off there. So carrying on, we'll stick with the Jakks for a minute because most of these are Jakks. Obviously, no collection is complete without Stone Cold Steve Austin. This isn't Jakks BCA. This is a Jakks Titantron line. I'm not sure exactly which one. I haven't done the research on these ones because I wasn't as fussed as I was the Triple H one. As you can tell, the Titantron line, they had these metal connections at the bottom where the idea was you had the Titantron playset and you put them in the entrance like that, and it would play the entrance theme. The Titantron playset, which I did have back in the day, was preloaded with I think about 8 or 10 snippets of theme songs like Vince McMahon, Steve Austin, The Rock. I think Triple H was on there as well. So that was the idea behind the Titantron figures, is that you just put them on the playset and it would play their theme tune. It's very cool.
You want to start something? It all starts with Titantron Live. Hit the stage and Titantron Live hits the lights, blasts the pictures, and rocks 10 WWF Superstar theme songs, all automatically. Because nobody goes through the rope before they go through the Titantron. Playtime's over! Titantron Live with Vince McMahon Tron active figure. Other Tron active figures with special sensors and rings.
This one's very loose. This is the problem with these ones. Is they're very hard plastic. There's not really, they're not the softer plastic that we get with the BCAs. But they did get very loose after quite a lot of wear, and this one has had quite a bit of wear. But it's cool to have the Rattlesnake in here. His WrestleMania appearance this year aside, he's obviously something of a legend. Certainly left his mark on someone this year at WrestleMania. And then following on from Steve Austin, another prerequisite in any WWE or WWF figure collection, especially the Jakks ones, you got The Rock himself. I wasn't a massive fan of the ones that had street clothes. A bit like Steve Austin one, that was his image. I get it, but I much preferred the ones that were in like ring gear. So, I ended up with a lot of these, Triple H, The Rock, Steve Austin in particular with street clothes. And, they were great to play with if you had no others. But there we go. So he's another Titantron one, as you can tell. Again, very, very loose. Quite a cool looking one to have. So that's all I've seen. I wouldn't have had this one as a kid. I think, like I say, for the street clothes reason, I much preferred them just to be ring ready, really, to be honest. But there we go. So we got 3, strong start there with Triple H, Austin, The Rock. And then we move on to ones that I probably wouldn't have had. Actually, no, let's stick with one that I would have had eventually in my collection, just not this version of him. The Rated R Superstar Edge. So, maybe he's made his way over here to reclaim his waistcoat from Triple H over there. But this is the later version of Edge. This is one I'd stopped watching by this point. Obviously, the Rated R Superstar era of Edge. Great likeness. The head sculpts, the head scans by this point. Obviously, we're stepping up a gear or two from the others that I'm going to be adding to the collection. Pretty sure, I'll just take it away, pretty sure this is still Jakks 2004, so still part of the Jakks range, which is great. Very, very cool. By this point, he was wearing some quite cool ring gear, to be fair. Not familiar with this one, but there we go. So the Rated R Superstar joins the ranks of the Jakks collection. Then we move on to the ones that I really, these guys weren't around when I was watching. They wouldn't have been choice to be part of my collection, but first of all, we got The Miz. But what I will say about this one, I love the look of The Miz in this one with the sort of long shorts going on rather than the trunks that he now wears. Very cool. Again, head sculpt wise, looking really good. Jakks Pacific 2003. I didn't realize actually The Miz was around at that point, but there we go. So it's a very cool figure to have. Looks wise, he's great. I'm assuming this is really obviously very early Miz, maybe when he first came into WWF. I'm sure this is The Miz. I haven't checked it up on it. Just the face and the hair got me. Looked a lot like him. If this isn't The Miz, please correct me in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that's The Miz. Very cool looking figure. And then finally, part of the pack. I was quite excited when this guy sneaked out the box. The voice of the voiceless himself, the best in the world, CM Punk. Anyone who knows me, my attitude towards the current product, there is really only one or two guys that I will stop to watch even now. Ring work, not quite where it once was, but on the mic, you cannot fault. CM Punk is one of my favourites. So again, not sure exactly which era of Punk this is because he hasn't really changed his look. 2004 Jakks Pacific, it says on the bottom. Now, I'm wondering whether that stamp on the bottom is actually reflective of when these were actually made or whether they've used other parts from other wrestlers, because 2004 seems quite early for Punk to have a figure like this. Maybe I'm wrong. But there we go. Anywho, whatever the year, CM Punk. Probably eventually I would have caved and had a Punk figure in my collection just because I do appreciate him. And it's cool to have one of the earlier versions of him. So there we go. Some quite cool additions there to the collection, courtesy of my mum. Thank you very much, Mum, again. Again, like I said at the top, never too old to have wrestling figures for your birthday. But now we move on to the bits that I've been saving. Obviously, I know what's in these. But I have been saving a few that have arrived to the post again, like I normally do. Start with this one here. Let's just crack into it, shall we? I'm not going to big it up anymore. Again, it's going to be a Jakks line heavy episode because that's really all I've been adding to this week. I'm hoping to be able to get a couple of the Galoob pieces at some point again soon to add to the collection. But as yet, I haven't seen any that have taken my eye that have been a good deal. So these two, what I'll say, there's two in here. They came together, and you'll see why I was able to buy these together and why I wanted to buy these together in a second. This was a Vinted purchase, actually. And I had both. It's a great thing, but anyone who's watching this who wants any tips for finding figures if you're just starting out yourself, Vinted is great. Finding figures that are going really cheap. Ones as well that you probably wouldn't see around all that often. And a good tip is add them to your watch list. Sellers will probably hate you for this. Add them to your watch list because you're more likely to be able to get an offer from them and get them at a cheaper price, which is what happened with this one. I'm really thankful to the seller. I don't think he'll be watching, but there we go. If he happens to stumble across this, then brilliant. Because he did cut me a really good deal. I had both of these on my watch list, and I did ask if he would do a deal on buying them both together, and he did. I'm really, really pleased with this one. So two figures that I never had in the collection. I didn't, again, see these in the shops, but once I knew that they were out there, I wanted them. Jerry the King Lawler. I did have a later Jakks version of Jerry Lawler, just after they started releasing the classic superstars, around about that kind of era. I had one of him in it's almost like his entrance gear, his royal jacket, his crown. The crown you could take off, but he still had just basically his entrance coat and everything on. I always wanted a ring gear Jerry Lawler, and this is actually quite a cool one. Very basic. I mean, his gear at that time was anyway, but it's typical. You saw this without giving away any names, you would know who it was. Jerry the King Lawler, and of course, as we all know, his son, too sexy, Brian Christopher, tragically left us too soon. I love this era of him as well before Too Cool, because this is when he was around that time, probably when Too Much started teaming together, but they would still have this look before they sort of went down the Too Cool route. But this will be when I remember him from late 97, when he first came in. He was one of the first ones in the light heavyweight division. He got to the finals of the title tournament that December, lost to Taka Michinoku in the final. And so this is the era that I remember him fondly. Having those together is great. Again, Brian Christopher was one I only found out in later years even existed. And this is great. This is actually a really chunky one. There's great detail on here. we are going to find that this is the only problem with these Jakks ones, because of the type of rubber they got for the limbs, they get stained and marked, and you can't really get it off very easily. But I'm not fussed about that. I'm just glad to have those two in the collection. So father and son there, as we came to know towards the end, Jerry Lawler and Brian Christopher in the BCA collection. So bring out the next one. Pause for a second while I scribble out my address because nobody wants to see that. So this one again, this is another vintage one. I've been busy on vintage over the last couple of weeks. I actually had some really cool finds. So this one here will make the first figure I showed you make a little more sense. Now this goes against everything I've been saying about what I was collecting, because this is neither Jakks BCA, neither WCW Galoob. It's not even one of those federations. This is a TNA. I never had any TNA figures because I didn't watch TNA, and I quite frankly was past collecting figures then. But I saw this one, and I was able to. It was around about the time that I decided I was going to keep the Jeff Jarrett over here, mainly because another purchase I'd made around about this same time ties in. It's another Jeff Jarrett figure in the BCA line, and it's not yet arrived, which is annoying. I was hoping to have all three of these together, but there we go. But I found this one, and I just love the look of it. And this is the thing. I loved the look of Jeff Jarrett with this whole, once he got to the shorts kind of era is what I call it. But in TNA, this is probably later kind of Impact Wrestling TNA, I'm not sure, but the likeness of him is fantastic, especially when you compare the two. I mean, that's like night and day, but it's great. I love this look of Jeff Jarrett, and I think with the sort of jacket thing, whatever you can cape, whatever you call it, it's a really, really cool looking figure. And it's almost going to be nice to have all the Jeff Jarretts together, so you can see the genesis of them. And so there you go. That would be probably one of the only ones that I step outside of the WCW, WWF range. But I just love the look of it, and he went well with the collection I was building, which will be a little sort of nod to Jeff Jarrett. Now, the next one is a little bit big, so I'm just going to pause here for a second and clear the decks, because this last one is very, very cool, and I want to make sure that I can show it in all its glory. Quite a bit bigger, this one. Which is really this. It hasn't got a bit of a story to it, really. I mean, I suppose I'll explain it as I go through, but it was just one of those pieces that I saw, and I had to have. I've been trying to get hold of a few of the Jakks BCA ones that I'm trying to get the ones that I never had but always wanted, and this one actually ended up having two of the three I was after, so I had to get it. Now this is a boxed set, so I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to keep it in the box. It kind of seems a bit of a shame not to. But I'll have to see in terms of how my display goes and my space goes. You can probably see through the bubble wrap already what this is. Look at this. Jakks BCA triple threat set. Now, from a couple of videos ago, it's Sod's Law that I was after one Wildman Marc Mero because I'd never had one, and all of a sudden within a couple of weeks I managed to get two. I know the first release of Wildman Marc Mero, he had his black trunks and armband, it's black attire on. So I don't know whether the one I've got, which is identical to this one, whether the one I've got actually came from this set, but I've got another one. So what I might decide to do is, if I keep this one boxed, I might keep the other one as loose. I may decide to put it up for sale just to, again, just put a few pound back in the fund. But the reason I saw this is because I always wanted Ahmed Johnson. He got a lot of criticism in the day for real lack of ability in the ring and on the mic and that. I thought when he debuted at Survivor Series 95, he's such a cool guy to have, especially alongside Shawn Michaels. So he was a favourite of mine for a little while. But then this one, Yokozuna. Always wanted, I had the Hasbro. I always wanted the Yokozuna Jakks. He looks so cool. He actually looks even better in person than I thought it would. Because I thought the Jakks figures tended to be a little light on size with some of them. I mean, for example, Ahmed Johnson is not as thickly set as you would expect, him to be in person. But you do get they've done Yokozuna some justice there. Comes with a couple of chairs there. Look on the back. I always like looking on the back of these. So you had the tag teams. The new Blackjacks was one that I always wanted. Legion of Doom I had one of. Headbangers I had one of. The Godwins I had both, but I didn't have that version. I had the other version with the what do they call it? I can't think what the flag is, but it was their sort of heel version. The Ringside Collection, Sonny, Vince McMahon, Sable Referee. I never really bothered with those. And then you get down the bottom here. Steve Austin, Rocky Maivia. Flash Funk was one I always wanted. Ken Shamrock. Savio Vega I had the white version of. Sid, I never wanted that one. They always looked a bit odd. You got here the Roy's War, the mini figures. I used to have one of those. I don't know if it was that one. Yeah, I think it was that one. Don't remember having the springboard and that, but I had those wrestlers, and then obviously everyone back in the day had them on the electronic microphones. It was great. The more I go through this kind of era, the more memories I unlock. Such a great time. But back over looking at the set itself. Wow. Again, people have differing opinions probably on this one in terms of was it a decent or necessary release? Triple threat back then, triple threat matches we had. Did we ever see one with Ahmed Johnson, Marc Mero, and Yokozuna? Not to my knowledge. What was the logic between putting these three together? We don't know. Well, I don't know. But this is part of the appeal, and it's such a weird, a wonderfully weird set of figures to bring out. It's almost just like, we don't know who we're going to put in there. Well, let's just whack three randoms in there. By this point, Yokozuna was past his best, when we're looking at 96. He was really struggling in the ring, struggling with his health and his weight. That's why he got put in a lot of trios matches. WrestleMania 12 with Ahmed and Jake Roberts, for example. Maybe that is part of it. Maybe this was meant to be a triple threat team, But anyway, I think as a set and being able to get these three, particularly finally getting the Yokozuna and an Ahmed, was brilliant. But having a set like this boxed at this point, again, I'm really torn. I would never take the blue blazer out of this box. I know that I wasn't in for boxed figures, but for the moment, that one, to be honest with you, it's going to look really good, isn't it? Stood up in any collection. So there we go. So the exciting point for this week, this was definitely the highlight for me this week. Got some great ones we've added in there, but definitely that one. So there we have it for this week. A pretty good haul there. I wasn't expecting to have that many to show you, but again, thanks to that impromptu birthday present and some quality vintage buying. That last one, by the way, I didn't mention it at the when I was unboxing it, but that box set, the triple threat box set, that was an eBay purchase. So I've had a bit of a mix this week, a real kind of vintage eBay presents. It's all good, and I am loving the journey and getting back into this. It's been so great to be able to acquire so many of the figures that I again just couldn't lay my hands on back in the day, but I finally got them. So that's it. That's me done for another week. I've got a quite an exciting one. I always say this, but a quite exciting one next week. Knowing what I've got coming, I did a little bit of WrestleMania weekend purchasing / entering competitions and stuff, and I've got some I got some luck there as well. So I've got some great pieces on their way to hopefully share with you next week if they're all here. Please continue to support the channel, like, subscribe, share everything that you can if you're enjoying what I'm doing, especially with the Go Figure journey at the moment. Please continue to do everything you can to support the channel. And for those collectors out there, keep up. Thank you for helping me. This community is fantastic. I've had so much help, so much guidance, so much support, met so many great people along the way so far. And until next week, I'll see you then. Thanks again. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Once Upon a Turnbuckle to keep updated about all future shows.